The amber glow of dawn stretched across the Front Range Mountains as Sarah Martinez hurried through her cramped apartment in Louisville, Colorado. Her phone buzzed incessantly on the kitchen counter, emergency alerts she'd been receiving all morning. Red flag warning, high winds, extreme fire danger. She glanced at the screen, her heart racing as she read, "Mandatory evacuation zone 3. Leave immediately." "No, no, no," she whispered, running her hands through her dark hair. Her 8-year-old daughter Emma sat at the small kitchen table, methodically eating her cereal, while watching cartoons on a tablet, blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding around them. Sarah's mind raced. She'd worked double shifts at Denver General Hospital for the past 3 weeks just to scrape together enough money for Emma's asthma medication. The prescription was ready for pickup at the pharmacy on Marshall Drive, right in the heart of what was now being called the Red Zone. "Mommy, are we going somewhere?" Emma asked, looking up with curious brown eyes that mirrored her mother's. "Just a quick trip, baby. Finish your breakfast." Sarah's phone rang. The caller ID showed her supervisor at the hospital. "Sarah, thank God you answered. Are you safe? The entire Louisville area is under mandatory evacuation. The winds are already hitting 70 miles per hour, and there's a grass fire that started near the Flatirons." "I know, Linda. I'm getting Emma's medicine, and then we're leaving." Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she gathered Emma's inhaler and emergency supplies. "Sarah, listen to me. Do not go to that pharmacy. The National Guard has cordoned off Marshall Drive. It's too dangerous." The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone. No signal. Through her window, she could see her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, struggling to load her cat carrier into her car. The wind was so strong it nearly knocked the small woman over. Dark smoke was beginning to creep over the mountains, and the smell of burning grass filled the air. "Mommy, I can't breathe very well," Emma said quietly, her small hand reaching for her inhaler. Sarah's heart sank. Emma's rescue inhaler was nearly empty, maybe 1 dose left. The prescription sitting at the pharmacy contained a month's supply, plus the nebulizer refills Emma needed for her severe asthma attacks. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart." Sarah knelt down and helped Emma with her inhaler. "We're going to get your medicine, and then we're going to visit Grandma in Denver for a few days, okay?" Emma nodded, trusting her mother completely. Sarah knew she should evacuate immediately. Every instinct screamed at her to grab Emma and drive east toward Denver. But without Emma's medication, her daughter could have a life-threatening asthma attack. The stress of evacuation, the smoke in the air, it was a perfect storm for triggering Emma's condition. She made a decision that would change everything. "Come on, baby, we're going." To make a quick stop first. As they walked to their old Honda Civic, Sarah felt the wind whipping her hair around her face. In the distance, she could hear the wail of sirens and the deep rumble of helicopters. The sky to the west was an ominous orange-brown, and ash was beginning to fall like snow. She strapped Emma into her booster seat and started the engine. The radio crackled to life with an emergency broadcast. All residents of Louisville, Superior, and Broomfield must evacuate immediately. Winds are gusting up to 115 miles per hour. This is an extremely dangerous situation. Sarah turned the radio off and pulled out of her apartment complex parking lot, heading west toward Marshall Drive instead of east toward safety. The drive toward Marshall Drive felt like navigating through an apocalyptic movie set. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tightly as her Honda Civic was buffeted by fierce winds. Debris, tree branches, roof shingles, and unidentifiable objects flew across the road. The sky had turned an eerie yellow-orange, and the air was thick with smoke and ash. "Mommy, why is it so dark outside? It's still morning," Emma asked from the back seat, her voice small and worried. "It's just a big storm, baby. We'll be okay," Sarah replied, though her own voice wavered with uncertainty. The GPS on her phone kept cutting in and out, but she knew these roads by heart. She'd lived in this area for 6 years, ever since Emma's father had left them, and she'd needed to find a more affordable place to live. The pharmacy was only 3 miles away. It should have been a 10-minute drive, but nothing about this morning was normal. As she turned onto Highway 36, Sarah's heart nearly stopped. A wall of orange flames was visible on the horizon, moving faster than anything she'd ever seen. It looked like a living thing, consuming everything in its path with terrifying efficiency. Her phone buzzed with another emergency alert. Fire behavior extreme. Winds 100 plus mph. Seek immediate shelter or evacuate now. That's not right, she muttered. The evacuation order had said the fire was still miles away when she'd left the apartment 20 minutes ago. How could it be moving so fast? Traffic on the highway was chaos. Cars were stopped bumper to bumper, but they were all heading east, away from the fire. Sarah was the only one driving west, toward the danger. A Jefferson County Sheriff's deputy was standing in the road about half a mile ahead, turning cars around and directing them toward evacuation routes. Sarah's stomach dropped. If they turned her around now, she'd never get to the pharmacy in time. Once the fire reached this area, it would be days or even weeks before they could return. She made a split-second decision that she would regret for the rest of her life. Sarah took the next exit and began navigating through residential streets, trying to find a back way to Marshall Drive. The neighborhood she drove through looked like ghost towns, abandoned cars and driveways, doors left open in haste, pets wandering loose. "Mommy, I see fire," Emma said, pointing out the window. Sarah looked where her daughter was pointing and felt her blood turn to ice. Flames were cresting the hill less than a mile away, moving like a freight train directly toward them. The roar was audible now, a sound like a massive waterfall combined with a jet engine. She pressed harder on the gas pedal. They were so close now. The pharmacy was just 6 blocks away. That's when she saw the roadblock. 3 National Guard vehicles were positioned across the intersection ahead, with soldiers in camouflage uniforms directing the last few evacuation vehicles. Beyond the roadblock, Sarah could see the pharmacy, so tantalizingly close she could read the sign. Her phone rang. It was an automated call from the Boulder County Emergency Management System. "This is an emergency evacuation notice. You are in immediate danger. All residents of Zone 3 must evacuate. Now, failure to evacuate may result in loss of life." Emma started to wheeze in the back seat. The smoke was getting thicker, and her daughter's asthma was already reacting to the poor air quality. "Mommy, I need my medicine," Emma said between labored breaths. Sarah looked at the roadblock, then at the pharmacy beyond it, then at her daughter, struggling to breathe in the rearview mirror. The weight of her decision pressed down on her like a physical force. She turned off the main road and drove into a subdivision, looking for any way to get around the roadblock. The wind was so strong now that it was rocking her small car. Palm-sized embers were falling from the sky like fiery snow. That's when she found it, a dirt service road that ran behind the shopping complex where the pharmacy was located. It was unmarked and partially hidden by overgrown vegetation, probably used by delivery trucks. Sarah turned onto the dirt road and accelerated. Thick smoke rolled across her windshield, reducing visibility to just a few feet. She was driving blind, guided only by the ruts in the dirt and her desperate determination to save her daughter. She didn't see the National Guard checkpoint until she was almost on top of it. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez had been stationed at the rear checkpoint for exactly 17 minutes when he saw the dust cloud approaching through the smoke. At first, he thought it might be a supply vehicle or another emergency responder who had somehow missed the radio calls announcing the complete evacuation of the area. Then the small gray Honda emerged from the haze, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Control, this is Checkpoint 7, he spoke into his radio. "I have a civilian vehicle approaching from the east on the service road. Single occupant—" Wait. He squinted through the smoke and wind-blown debris. "Make that 2 occupants. Looks like an adult and a child." "Copy, Checkpoint 7. That area is now in the direct path of the fire front. ETA to your position is less than 10 minutes. Turn them around immediately." Marcus stepped into the road and raised his hand, signaling the Honda to stop. The car slowed but didn't stop immediately. He could see the driver, a young Hispanic woman with dark hair whipping around her face. In the back seat, was a small girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. The woman rolled down her window as she finally came to a complete stop, about 10 feet away from Marcus. "Ma'am, you need to turn around, right?" "Now," Marcus called out over the roar of the wind. "This entire area is being evacuated. There's a massive wildfire heading directly toward us." "Please," the woman called back, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "My daughter, she has severe asthma, and her medication is at the pharmacy just ahead. We'll be quick, I promise. 5 minutes." Marcus looked past the Honda toward the shopping complex. The pharmacy was visible about 200 yards away, but beyond it, a wall of orange flames was cresting the hill. Even as he watched, a house on the ridge burst into flames with explosive force. The fire was moving faster than anything he'd seen in his 3 deployments to wildfire zones. "Ma'am, negative. That pharmacy is about to be overrun. You have maybe 5 minutes before this entire area is engulfed. Turn around now." The little girl in the back seat was coughing violently. Marcus could hear her wheezing even over the wind. The woman, who looked like she hadn't slept in days, turned to check on her daughter, then looked back at Marcus with desperation in her eyes. "She'll die without her medication, do you understand? If she has an asthma attack and I don't have her rescue inhaler, she could die." Marcus keyed his radio. "Control, I need an emergency medical unit at checkpoint 7. We have a pediatric asthma patient in distress." "Negative, checkpoint 7. All medical units have been evacuated. Fire front is now less than 8 minutes from your position. Clear the area. Immediately." Marcus looked at the woman, then at the little girl who was struggling to breathe, then at the approaching fire that was consuming everything in its path with terrifying efficiency. He'd been in the National Guard for 12 years. He'd responded to floods, tornadoes, and wildfires across Colorado. He'd never seen fire behavior like this. The wind shifted suddenly, and a shower of burning embers fell around them like deadly confetti. One landed on the Honda's hood with a sharp ping. "Ma'am, get out of the car," Marcus said, making a decision that went against every protocol he'd been trained to follow. "Leave the car here and get in my vehicle. We're going to make a run for that pharmacy, but we're doing it in an armored vehicle that can handle the heat and debris." The woman's eyes widened. "You'll help us?" "I have a daughter too," Marcus said simply, "and I took an oath to protect American citizens. That includes you and your little girl." Marcus quickly radioed his position and intentions to his commanding officer, knowing he'd likely face disciplinary action later if there was a later. "Rodriguez, are you out of your goddamn mind?" came the crackling response. "Fall back immediately. That's a direct order." "Sorry, sir, radio must be breaking up," Marcus replied, then switched off his radio. The woman and her daughter quickly transferred to Marcus's military vehicle, a heavily armored MRAP that could withstand significant heat and impact. The little girl's breathing was getting worse by the minute. "What's your daughter's name?" Marcus asked as he fired up the engine. "Emma," the woman replied. "I'm Sarah Martinez." "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Marcus. And Emma, you're going to be okay, sweetheart. We're going to get your medicine." As they drove the 200 yards toward the pharmacy, Marcus could feel the heat through the vehicle's armored walls. The fire was so close now that individual flames were visible through the smoke. The roar was deafening. They had maybe 3 minutes. The pharmacy's automatic doors were still functioning, though the power flickered intermittently as Marcus, Sarah, and Emma rushed inside. The building was eerily quiet except for the howl of wind and the increasingly loud roar of the approaching fire. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the empty aisles. "The prescription counter is in the back," Sarah said, carrying Emma, who was now wheezing with every breath. Marcus keyed his portable radio as they hurried toward the pharmacy counter. Any unit. This is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. I have a pediatric medical emergency at the Marshall Drive Pharmacy. Child with severe asthma attack in progress. Need immediate medical assistance or evacuation helicopter." Static answered him for several seconds before a voice crackled through. "Rodriguez, this is Flight Medic Thompson on Rescue 7. We're airborne about 2 miles from your position. What's the situation?" 8-year-old female. Severe asthma, in respiratory distress. We're in the Marshall Drive Pharmacy getting her medication, but we're about to be overrun by the fire front. Copy that? We can see your location. The entire area behind you is engulfed. You have approximately 90 seconds before the fire reaches the building. Get to the roof if possible. We'll attempt extraction." Behind the pharmacy counter, Sarah was frantically searching through prescription bags. Her hand shook as she sorted through dozens of white paper bags looking for Emma's name. "It has to be here," she muttered desperately. "I called yesterday to confirm it was ready." Emma was sitting on the floor now, leaning against the counter, using every muscle in her small body to breathe. Her lips were starting to turn blue, a sign Marcus recognized from his combat medic training. "Sarah, we need to go, now," Marcus said gently but firmly. "The fire is almost here." "Found it," Sarah cried out, pulling a white bag from the shelf. She quickly opened it and pulled out a rescue inhaler. "Emma, baby, here's your medicine." She helped Emma use the inhaler, and within 30 seconds, the little girl's breathing began to ease slightly. But they weren't out of danger yet. The building shuddered as a massive gust of wind hit it. Through the pharmacy's windows, Marcus could see that the sky had turned completely orange. Burning debris was striking the building with increasing frequency. "All right, we need to get to the roof," Marcus said, scooping Emma up in his arms. "The helicopter is coming for us." They found the emergency exit that led to a stairwell. Marcus kicked open the door to the roof, and they were immediately hit by a wall of superheated air and smoke. The noise was incredible, like standing next to a freight train. The helicopter was visible through the smoke, hovering about 100 feet above them. A rescue basket was being lowered on a cable. "Sarah, you and Emma go first," Marcus shouted over the noise. Sarah helped Emma into the rescue basket and climbed in beside her. As they were lifted toward the helicopter, Marcus looked around at the scene below. The entire hillside behind the pharmacy was a wall of flames advancing at terrifying speed. His armored vehicle in the parking lot was already starting to smoke from the radiant heat. The basket came down for Marcus, and he jumped in just as the first flames reached the edge of the building's roof. As he was lifted toward the safety of the helicopter, he could see that the pharmacy burst into flames just seconds after they'd escaped. Inside the helicopter, Flight Medic Thompson was working on Emma, giving her oxygen and monitoring her vital signs. Sarah held her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Is she going to be okay?" Sarah asked. "She's stable," Thompson replied. "The inhaler helped a lot. We're taking her to Children's Hospital Denver just to be safe, but she should be fine." Marcus looked down as they flew east toward Denver. Behind them, the entire Marshall Drive area was consumed by flames. The fire had moved through the region so fast that it looked like a war zone. Dozens of houses were burning, and thick black smoke was rising thousands of feet into the air. His radio crackled to life. "Rodriguez, this is command. What's your status?" "All 3 civilians successfully evacuated, sir. Child is stable and en route to medical care." There was a long pause before his commanding officer responded. "Copy that. Rodriguez, we'll discuss your creative interpretation of orders when you get back." Sarah looked at Marcus with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "You saved our lives." Marcus nodded, thinking about his own daughter back home in Colorado Springs. "Just doing my job, ma'am." As the helicopter flew toward Denver, they could see the massive scope of the disaster unfolding below. The fire had consumed thousands of acres in just a few hours, destroying entire neighborhoods. But in the midst of all that destruction, a mother's love and a soldier's courage had combined to save one small life. Emma Martinez would grow up with asthma, but she would grow up. And sometimes, in a world full of disasters and chaos, that's the most important victory of all. 3 hours later, the Marshall Fire would be declared the fastest-moving wildfire in Colorado history, consuming over 6,000 acres and destroying 1,084 homes. But in room 314 of Children's Hospital Denver, 8-year-old boy Emma Martinez was breathing normally, holding her mother's hand and asking when they could go see Marcus again to thank him properly for being their hero.